go up to Schenley, up to the Oval and play. And I would laugh and say, why would we want to play there? This is a great course over here. I called it Coleman's Folly, but he had a vision of making a more of a championship caliber course, which back then really was. And in this small area here, somehow he made a good design that has stood the test for all these years. It's still a challenging and fun course to play. And we owe a debt of gratitude to Steve for sticking with this plan out here to get our first course here. So,
right there.
Great day here. I know he came right at the end. I don't know where he is now.
Right there.
Where is he? He's hiding.
He's right there. The white hat.
Come here, Steve. Come here, Steve. We already talked about Steve Coleman already, and there's a lot more to say. We're really awesome that Steve's here. Actually, there's a picture of Steve and Red and KB. And I'm not in the picture because I'm taking it, but the other guy beside him is Vince Hurley. And I'll talk about Vince in just a second, but while Steve's here, I just want to give this sign to Steve. This is the old sign. Actually, it's the second of 3 signs that have been on hole 2. The first sign, the original sign for hole 2, which said it was a par 5, just fell apart, and we replaced it with these 10 years ago, and hole 2 said it was a par 4. We're giving this to Steve. He can put it up in his house and look at it. Remember when he could actually drive the pin. But there are new signs on hole 2 now. And as you all know, the course is par 54. The reason it was a par 5 originally, and then a par 4 and really a par 3 now is that when the course opened, we were playing with discs like this, like an 86 softy, that really only went about 300 feet.
And they would break if you hit a tree.
And they would break, yeah.
When I first came out here to design a course, it was all woods back in there, and they had these little plants growing up, completely covering the back part of the course. And I went out and bought these machetes. And I spent so much time just going through there and whacking the weeds down with the machetes. That was tremendous. It's all clear now. You wouldn't even know that I did that. No, looking at it now.
Did that help your game?
Nah, it made me sore, probably.
they had a nickname for hole 13 back in the day. It was called Vietnam.
Yeah, because there was a field of poison ivy on the entire lower fairway. And we finally eradicated it, but it was pretty rough overall.
And then on hole 11, 20 feet off the tee, there were 2 skinny trees this far apart. There was no other way to go. You had to put it between those 2 trees.
Oh yeah, that's where I used the weed, the machetes back down there. The hole 11, yeah.
So I mean, the Pittsburgh Flying Disc Society, PFDS, was sort of formed around getting this course in 1987. Vince Hurley, who was a city park supervisor, who had been petitioned by Steve and Henry Thorne and Marcus Wittich initially about putting a disc golf course in here, finally got a grant from the Hunt Foundation and got the city's approval to put the course in. And so they needed a partner, official partner to do it with, a volunteer organization. So we formed Pittsburgh Flying Disc Society in 1988 to be that organization, to partner with them. And Vince Hurley was a supervisor in city parks. He was a supervisor of this park and some of the other ones in the southern area. Even before this course went in, Vince Hurley ran junior Frisbee contests that Whammo sponsored. And they would take kids from all over the country to at small events around the country as qualifiers, and then the kids that won their qualifier went to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena to compete in a World Frisbee Junior Championships. And there were actually 2 kids from Pittsburgh, Walter and Michelle Lamoury, from Hampton, that qualified and went out there one year. But Vince ran these these junior Frisbee contests at Point State Park, and it was the first time I met him. That was back in 1981, and we just kind of formed this relationship. And anyway, Vince was the champion that got this course in. If it weren't for Vince Hurley, it wouldn't be here, even despite our efforts. So this year, Pittsburgh Flying Disc bought this bench to dedicate to Vince Hurley. He passed away in the late 1980s, early 1990s. I don't even know exactly when it was.
Cancer or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can check out some of the stuff. This is a disc from the 1988 Pittsburgh Flying Disc Open, which was the first tournament held here in Pittsburgh. This is actually a classic rock, the mold here. This is a junior Frisbee contest. Fastback is used from that contest. This is a, I should do them in order here. The Hacky Sack and Frisbee Festival, which initially was held in Pittsburgh here in 1984 at Point State Park. We did hold it here one year in Schenley Park before the course went in. This is from a league final in 2011 with the Schenley map on it, and I should put them in this order. And this is a disc from the Pennsylvania Flying Disc Championships.
Does it have my name on the back of it?
No, this one's mine.
Somebody else.
We held an overall tournament, including disc golf, MTA, distance, freestyle, accuracy here at Schenley Park for 2 years in 1989 and 1990. So those are what those discs are all about. Here's the plaque dedicated to Vince, and just thank everybody for coming, and hopefully this bench will give us some things to remember, not just Vince Hurley by, but all of the Frisbee players that have come and gone, and as we are all going to be gone at some point, maybe some of us will have our ashes spread out here on the course someday. I'm not sure, but it's just good to remember the people that aren't with us anymore, and the good times we've had with all.
Yeah.
Could I say one real quick thing? How this happened, how this course happened, is we made a proposition to the Parks and Recreation. And Vince Hurley, we needed, what was it, $15,000 approximately for the baskets and the signs? Something so like he found out through Ed Hedrick, who was the guy who invented these baskets and the father of disc golf, basically. He talked to Ed Hedrick, and Ed Hedrick says, hey, did you know about the Hunts? The Hunts are the people who founded the Alcoa Foundation way back. And he says, no, I don't. He says, well, there's a guy named John Hunt, who's a legislature in Vermont or New Hampshire. And he has a private disc golf course on his own property. Why don't you make a proposal to him and see what he thinks? So they let him know about what we're trying to do here in Pittsburgh. And I remember I had the opportunity to play a few rounds with him here. And he said, oh, I went for that right away, because I come into town for holidays all the time, and I'd love to play a course right here while I'm here. So it went through the Hunt Foundation. You'll see it on the benches there, and on hole 15, dedicated to the young at heart, Roy Arthur Hunt. And so that's where the money came from originally. And Vince was the man who really made that connection for us.
We actually got the pole holes before the course went in, and for some reason we couldn't get it approved because of the union issues to put it in. And finally, a couple years later, we got it approved that we could put it in despite the unions. I think the unions helped us out with the cement and everything. But so we could have had it in sooner. But
yeah, they just had storage for over a year.
We were so excited when it finally got in. First disc golf course in Pittsburgh.
Right. It was volunteers that did all the installation of the baskets. 10 years later, we poured 36 concrete tee pads in one day. Volunteers did the tee pads. And then 10 years after that, we put new baskets in, and we redid all the tee signs. So this is our 30th anniversary. We figured we'd do this bench to kind of remember everybody.
Yeah.
Bring your old baskets.
And hole 2 was actually further back. That's
those discs.
one of the par 5 red.
Par 5 red. Yeah. So that's it, Vince. Have a good. What do you want to say? Anything? Or?
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of work done this year, big thanks to Jay Gary, Mark Verstopnik, Lenny Manatelli, Bud, Hearn, Andy Flem, Adam Couture, everybody else who helped us sort of redo and spruce up a lot of the tee pads. You'll see we put some blocks in the front of some of them. We put some raised areas in the front of them just to try to help with drop-offs where there's been erosion over the years. So we really tried to put in some extra work and spruce things up this year. Me, the other course promoters and volunteers. So big thanks to everybody for just coming out today. When Mark and I were kind of cooking this up, I didn't think we'd have such an awesome turnout. So thanks for coming. So from here, we're gonna go back down to the pavilion. We're gonna get groups and scorecards together. I've got some stuff to explain about the event, so we're going to go back down there, kind of regroup, and then head out to play.